Shushbox podcast, a safe space for self-expression, healing, and empowerment.
Brought to you by Shani Ra, writer and artist.
Self-love and embodiment coach, Jacqueline Michelle.
And Sunita, founder of Shushbox, the wellness platform supporting survivors of sexual trauma. This is your host Sunita, and today we will be talking about bystander intervention. I will put a small trigger warning as this episode mentions sexual harassment and assault. On Wednesday, 13th of October, a woman was sexually assaulted on a transit train in Philadelphia, US. A number of passengers reportedly looked on without doing anything to help, with some even recording the incident on their phones. In this week's episode of the Shushbox podcast, we are joined by Gabriela Mejia, who is the Communications and Programs Manager at Hollaback, and we'll be talking more about how you can be an active bystander in scenarios like this. So welcome, Gabriela, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me in this podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you. And yes.
Yeah, we're super happy to be connecting with you again, because obviously we've had a conversation before, which was a very interesting conversation. So I wanted to bring you back onto the podcast to kind of recap and refresh the work that you're doing at Hollaback. So yeah, maybe we could start for those listeners who might not have heard of Hollaback with just a brief explanation of who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. So I can introduce myself, Gabriela Mejia. I'm Program and Communications Manager at Hollaback. And who we are at Hollaback is a movement. It's a people power movement to end harassment in all its forms. And what that means for us is that we create innovative tools for folks to use to bring an end to the culture that makes harassment seem okay. We've created trainings that we offer for free, virtually to anyone, anywhere, to learn how to stand up to harassment in ways that are direct and indirect and really accessible and really are going to change our culture and our communities.
Amazing work. Yes, I remember the last time we were speaking about some of the initiatives that you were working on, and something that still stands out now. And I try to remember them. It's still the 5 Ds. I try to remember what they were exactly. And I think I have got them. But yeah, I would love for us to go into a bit more about the 5 Ds and the bystander intervention that you guys offer.
Yeah, so the 5 Ds are these tools that we're always sharing, and I would love to go through them. And to really set up, anyone learning or getting a refresh on the 5 Ds, it's important to discuss bystander intervention. This idea of being a bystander, usually if you just use the word bystander, I'm a bystander to something, it feels like it's not full of action, like it's not very powerful, but it absolutely can be being a bystander to something if you move into action. And we are doing that all the time for each other. We see emergency situations, we see someone needs medical help, and we know to call 911, we know to rush over there and help them up. But when we see other instances where we should be active bystanders, like harassment, we may sometimes freeze. We may sometimes sort of forget ourselves, forget who we are, which is caring individuals that care about our community. So we may feel like we can't do anything or our minds go blank. And so we've created 5 tools, the 5 Ds, to remember that there's actions that we can take to help others when we see them being harassed, see them being disrespected in public spaces. And of course, we've adapted this to different spaces like online spaces. So the very basic 5 Ds, and they go in order, I will share with you now. So the first one is distract, and it is causing a distraction to bring an end to harassment. And this was really broad and creative, and you can get as creative as you want, because a distraction can be a lot of things. It could be going up to someone and pretending you know them. and getting them out of that situation by doing that, by being creative in that moment and telling them, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Are you busy right now? Do you want to get out of here? And just like that, you give them a chance to get out of a situation where they may have been harassed.
That is a good one, actually. Sorry to just jump in. I'm like, yeah, that, you know, like you were saying, sometimes it may feel like we're powerless when we do see something happening. So I feel like that seems like quite a simple but effective one that you could easily do as a bystander.
Yeah, it's not our motto is that these simple actions can have big impact. It can really help someone. So like you said, this is simple for some of us to do. Some of us may also feel maybe we're not that creative or extroverted in that moment. You can still use distract by creating a loud distraction that will get attention away from that person. Or even just going up to them and asking them for directions and being in community with them in that moment is going to make them feel less alone and may, you know, make them less of a target because they're not alone. They're with someone now that is paying attention to the situation. So that first one is distract. There's a million other examples of how to use
I was just trying to think of something. I was like, what could you do? You could trip. No, I mean, literally, I was like, what could you do? Like trip over. I understand what you're saying with it. It's a simple practice in the sense of we're trying to diffuse and distract the situation in whatever way you want to do that. But yeah, I guess you can, like you say, get creative with it. You could, yeah. I'm not going to keep noting them off. I'm going to come with some crazy ones.
I'm sure we all have, you know, all these different ways of how we'd approach distract, and that's what's kind of like empowering about it, that it feels like something we can do. We can figure out how to do.
It's got a unique spin. You can put your own unique spin on it. Whatever distract means to you, you see the situation. What can you do to distract it?
Yeah. What do you feel comfortable with? And something you'll notice is that distract is indirect. You're not engaging with the person doing the harassment. You're engaging with the person being harassed or with a group of, or the space around you. So it is indirect. It is very personalized to us. And all of these should be personalized too. So use your own words. You don't have to use the examples I share, or you can, if that's helpful. Now the next key, the next one in our order is delegate. Delegating to someone else is something we suggest in moments where you perhaps feel like a situation is escalating. It's maybe getting worse in some way. A great way to de-escalate situations is to involve more people. So if you are in public spaces or even private spaces, you can always delegate to other people around you and just get them involved by bringing attention to the situation. Turn to them and say, hey, do you see what's going on over there? I think we should say something. I think we should do something. And just turning to the people around you is delegating. It is involving more people. But there's also the side of delegate where you can involve someone in a position of authority. And that could be the teacher, that could be the flight attendant, it could be the manager of the store you're at. And those people sometimes are trained to help make sure that environments are safe to everyone and that everyone's being respected in a space. So you can go to them and let them know, hey, this other peer in this space is being harassed. Can you help me out? I want to show up in support of them. And those are two ways to delegate. Something that we find really important is that if you choose to delegate to police or any kind of police, we ask that you check in with the person being harassed first and ask them, do you want me to call the police? That is super important because they can say yes, and then you can go ahead and involve the police if that situation calls for that. But they could also say no. And then we want to respect what they say because they're saying no for a reason. We don't need to know the details. We just need to know that we're there to support the person being harassed. So if they don't want us to involve the police, we should find other ways to delegate, other ways to de-escalate the situation, that are going to keep them safe and going to keep them comfortable and reduce their trauma, not heighten it in any way. So that
I
is...
understand that one, but just to be devil's advocate, what if the person was scared? Okay, they are scared to say, call the police, right? How do we know when to use our intuition in those cases where the person's saying, I'm okay, no, because this can be a response sometimes to these situations where they're like, no, I'm fine. But you can clearly see that something isn't right. Would you advise then for the bystander to follow their gut feeling, or how would you approach that situation?
I would say that the gut feeling there is likely not wrong. You may be seeing something escalating. So I would still encourage you to delegate. I would just say respect that person doesn't want the police to be the one you delegate to. So you can still delegate to like any other person in a position of power that is nearest to you, and maybe involve a lot more people to help de-escalate the situation. But if they say not the police specifically, then I would trust that there may be information you don't know about this person. You may not know their immigration status, for example, and maybe there's a past experience they've had with police. So
this is true. I mean, it's sad that obviously this is a whole different podcast episode, but it is sad that the people that you think are there to protect you it's not always the case, right?
Yeah, it's always going to be important as a bystander to bring it back to the core mission of showing up in support of someone. So as comfortable as we may feel, or not comfortable, whatever your situation is with calling the police, you want to always show up in support of the person being harmed in that situation. And that is going to be the core of each action that you're going to take, whether it be distract, delegate, or any of the other Ds.
We have to respect. We have to, even if there is a good gut feeling, like you say, and yeah, we can always get power in numbers, like more people, rather than the actual authority, like you say, the police. It can be just more people on the street.
Yeah, and there's always going to be those situations where it's up to you. If it's a situation that truly seems out of control, like you said, there is that gut instinct, and I'm never going to say exactly what you should do in situations, because it's going to be your gut as well in situations that maybe really seem out of control. There's no answer that will be right for every situation. Absolutely. It's always going to be your own instincts, but you can also trust that the more you go into situations like this with the mentality to support someone, the more your gut instinct is going to give you some options, some answers.
Yeah, sorry, that was just like a pop-up question that came up. I was like, wait, I'm going to just put my hand up and ask it. Yeah.
That is one of our trainings focuses specifically on this issue that we see in our communities of police-sponsored violence. And so we are happy as an org to discuss, the different levels of comfort with police and the different relationships there are with harassment. So I appreciate your question, and we welcome any other questions people may have by hearing this conversation, that maybe question marks popped up in your head about your own response. And if it's a question we can answer or we can inform better, we're happy to cover.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so we've got how many? We've got 2 Ds out of the 5.
We are now on to our third one, which is document. Documentation can be really helpful. I think the more time goes on, the more we understand how helpful documentation is in our day and age. However, there are some best practices that we want everyone to keep in mind when they choose to document a situation of harassment. First off, is the harassment ongoing? If it is ongoing and you decide to perhaps take your phone out and start filming or start taking pictures, but this person just keeps being harassed, they're not going to perhaps feel supported by you just pointing a phone at them. They may feel like they're being made a spectacle of. They may just at the end of the day not feel supported. So what we want to do is combine document with any of the other Ds to make sure the harassment is somehow coming to an end. So delegating perhaps to people around you, say, I'm going to take some documentation. Can you go and get the manager? Can you say something? Do you feel comfortable saying something or helping this person?
Really important to highlight doing it in partnership with another D, because, you know, although the power of social media, like we've seen it, can have an amazing effect, you know, bringing awareness to these issues. But like you say, if we bring it back to actually supporting the person in that scenario, is live streaming what is happening in that instance really going to help?
Yes. And live streaming is going to be a tool that we definitely are building some best practices on, because so whatever documentation you take, let me backtrack. Whatever documentation you take, whether it be using your phone to take a video, using your phone to take pictures, writing down notes, that is also documentation in certain spaces where we don't have access to our phones. Whatever you choose to do, at the end of the situation, we want you to check in with the person that was harassed and give it over to them, whatever you have. Let them choose what to do with it. Whether they wanted to go online to bring awareness, that should be up to them. Because sometimes maybe they don't want everyone to see that moment in their life. Maybe they want to keep it in their private files to perhaps use to report, use that documentation to file a report, but never have anyone else see it again. And that should be completely up to them. So we always want to make sure that when we take documentation, we are not on our own, just with our own, making our own decision to have it go viral or to share it out everywhere. We want to make sure the person making that choice is the person who was harassed. And in our trainings, you can find some more advice on the best practices to take documentation, but those are the two key ones. If it's ongoing, bring it to an end. And if after you're done, you have this piece of documentation, give it to the person who was harassed and they can then choose what to do with it.
Yeah.
So that is our third D.
It comes to consent. Yeah, I guess with filming, you know, because then I know, I think you mentioned it at the start, but you're actually active in multiple markets, right? The UK, US, I know we've connected before, but there's lots of different places that Hollaback is helping the communities. And, you know, in different places, there are obviously guidelines and rules and laws around filming without consent.
Absolutely. That is key, especially because there are laws in different countries that make it so that certain parties have to agree to be filmed. And sometimes if you decide to take your phone out and start recording, it may not be a realistic option for you. You can still document. You can still document a situation. It's just that recording may not always be a choice for you. And we go into more detail in those situations in our trainings. But that is a great point to bring up.
Sorry, I just keep thinking of like the phone and I'm like, I think I've got social media on the brain today. I'm like, and then the streaming and this. But yeah, like you said, obviously there's a pen and paper as well. There's other ways to document. There's, you know, without the technology, you can still make note of what is happening. So it's a good reminder that, I mean, it's a good reminder in life in general. It's not all about your phone, you know.
Yeah, your account is also very valuable. So if you write all the details you remember down, that is your account of a situation. And so that is our third D. Our fourth D is delay. Delay it's called that because it's a delayed action that you're going to take. And it's going up to the person after harassment has ended and asking them, are you okay? Checking in with them. Hey, I saw what happened. What can I do for you right now? What do you need right now to feel safe? I'm so sorry it happened. It's not acceptable. So those kinds of phrases, words that are in our hearts already, sharing that with the person that was harassed is going to be so impactful, because it's going to make sure that that person doesn't feel in any way that it was their fault that they were harassed. They understand that it's not an acceptable behavior in their community, so they don't feel like an outsider in the community. And it just really helps with building that resilience, with helping them feel supported in that moment. It's a really powerful action that you can take, checking in with someone. So we suggest you combine it with any of the other Ds because it is so powerful. So after any intervention, after any situation, add delay to your actions. Go up to them and check in with them and make sure they're feeling supported. Maybe they're not feeling okay. That's okay. Ask them, are you okay? Maybe they're not. You can then help them in whatever way they tell you that you can. And so delay is really, really powerful, even though it seems really simple. And we say to do it after because sometimes harassment happens really quickly, and you maybe intervened in another way and it ended really quickly. That doesn't mean that your support is over just because the situation ended. You can still show up with delay and help that person on their way to building resilience after that event. So delay is it's as simple as asking, are you okay?
I think the good thing with delay as well is, like you say, sometimes when people go through these experiences, it happens so quickly that you don't really realize what's happened, and you might question yourself did that really happen, or was that in my head? Like, was it such a big deal? So I think, again, if we can, as a community, as a society, voice after, the delay, like you say, come up to somebody and ask them if they're okay, it almost makes it feel valid as well, what the person might be thinking, because that person might be questioning, was that harassment? Am I overthinking it?
Yes, absolutely. I think we like to share this basic definition of harassment as behavior that is unwanted and unwelcome. And we found that people will attend the training and realize this like really heavy realization that these disrespectful behaviors that were happening to them are wrong. They are considered harassment. And so people will look back on a lot of experiences and sort of get that confirmation that what they knew that in that moment was wrong to be said to them is wrong and is considered wrong by the community. So when we go up, like you said, and check in with them through delay, we're letting them know, we saw what happened. I saw the same thing that you experienced. I saw it, and I'm here for you. And I'm here, and someone here in your community is on your side. And this is not acceptable, actually, in our community. And that can be really powerful.
That actually just made me feel a bit emotional. I don't know why. Just thinking of it, the work that we do at Shushbox and everything, it is about making survivors feel seen, heard, and supported. So the more, we can stand up for one another and call out these behaviors, right? Call out these behaviors that we're seeing.
That is how we change our community's culture. And then that is how we change broader culture, by simple actions that make it clear what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And that delay can be part of that. And our final D, direct. So direct is the only direct action that we are sharing with the 5 Ds. The other 4 are indirect actions. But direct is engaging with the person that is doing the harassment, going up to them and saying very clearly, succinctly, in a very final way, what you're doing is harassment. You need to stop it. And that's it. You don't need to get into a back and forth with them. We are not giving you a script to somehow change them. or to win the argument that they may want to start, that person really isn't worth that kind of time that you're going to be that you have in that situation. The person that's worth your time in that situation is the person who was harassed. So we say, after you directly ask for the harassment to stop, turn to the person who was harassed and check in with them, make sure they're okay and that they're feeling safe. So direct is not going to be right for for all of us. We definitely stress that you assess your safety before you do direct. Some of us may feel like direct may not be safe for us because of the identities we share with the person being harassed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the harassment could turn on us. And if that is the case, if you assess your safety and it doesn't feel right, we ask you to use any of the other 4Ds in combination, however you'd like. But if direct does feel doable for you, it feels like something you can do, that your personality suited for it, or maybe you hold certain privileges in a certain space, then you can remember to just be firm in what you're saying, be clear, name the behavior. A good way to construct the sentence in this moment for those of us whose minds go blank, name the behavior, ask for it to stop, and that's it. Don't get into a back and forth, turn to the person that was harassed and take care of them. So that so that you're always honoring the fact that you're taking care of the person being harassed, not trying to be a hero, not trying to change someone's whole personality or ideology or whatever's causing that person to harass others. Your goal is clear. With all of these 5Ds, your goal should be to support someone. So my sort of final question to everyone that you can ask yourself is, which of these Ds feels like it's really suited for me? We call it a superpower, even though they're small, simple actions. Which one are you really, really good at that you can remember from now to maybe if you ever need it? And keep that one, close, with the awareness that you can use all the Ds. You can use them in a different order that may make more sense. And you can use them, and hopefully you won't have to use them, actually.
I mean, bringing it back around, it is good to have those reminders, like you say, and those tools for when we do see these behaviors, because sadly the case is it's happening a lot, isn't it? And this is obviously talking about harassment that's taking place like on the streets, maybe in the workplace. I know also you mentioned you are doing some work with online harassment. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about the online world and how we can help each other in feeling safe online.
Absolutely. I think with online spaces, we maybe have all experienced this. There's a level to intervention that feels a little riskier because we don't know all the parties involved all the time. People can hide their identity. People may get a little bit more bold in how harmful they are with their language and their actions because they can sort of hide their identity. So we were really we really sat down to adapt the 5Ds to online settings in a way that would keep the person doing the person being the bystander safe, and also help really support the person that's being harassed online. Online, we see different tactics for harassment that are not possible in person, like large groups of people doing the harassment together towards one person at the same time. We see things that in person maybe are not possible, like doxing, like getting all of someone's private information and sharing it online with the intent, with that negative intent to expose their private information. We see different kinds of harassment online. And so we have to adapt the ways that we show up for each other, that we also take care of ourselves in online spaces. Because there is a lot of issues with privacy. So we adapted the 5Ds they do look different than what I've just said when you adapt them online. For example, direct becomes a lot more complicated. And our suggestion with direct is to hold back when you don't know the people involved, and to use other of the Ds, other actions to support a person, and not directly engage with people that are being harmful online, that are complete strangers to you, because of some issues with your own security and and privacy online. So while direct is sort of, we ask you to hold back on direct, there are other Ds that sort of shine a bit more or are very important in online spaces, like document. And hopefully, as platforms start being more responsible with their own responses, Delegate will also end up changing than what we suggest. So if anyone is sort of interested for that detailed breakdown of how the 5Ds show up in online spaces, and maybe keeping that as a resource, I encourage you to come join us at our hour-long training. We have, we're making November be the month where we're really focusing on online harassment. And so we have a training on the 12th, and we are looking to schedule more trainings for bystander intervention to be an ally for online abuse. So I encourage you to check us out at ihollaback.org, check out our trainings and sign up for that one, or for any of the other ones that maybe feel like something you want to know, you want to have in your toolbox, or you want to share with someone that you care about that may need this information.
Amazing, thank you so much. And those training sessions, they're open for like the general public, anybody can join?
Absolutely, anyone can join. Currently, our online harassment training is offered only in English, but our bystander intervention training to stop anti-Asian / Asian American and xenophobic harassment, that training is being offered in different languages. We just had 2 sessions, one in Korean, one in the major Chinese languages, and now we're scheduling one in Vietnamese, and more languages to come. And we're hoping to keep expanding the languages we offer our trainings in.
That's amazing. I mean, I was just thinking then I want to come to the online one on the 12th of November. I think it's just so important to, because you hear about all these instances, but yeah, it's hard knowing what to do in those scenarios. And you would think that platforms would be a bit more accountable, and it should be that way moving forward. I mean, just to wrap it up and with like a final question, how do you think we can end? What is the answer to ending harassment?
I think to bring it back to sort of our mission statement, people, lots of people. So culture is going to change through small actions being done by a lot of people. So sharing anything you learn about bystander intervention with your circle, and then your circle sharing it with their circle, that is going to shift how we interact with each other, and gonna give everyone sort of some new tools for taking care of each other. So we at Hollaback really are of the belief that culture will change, because we've seen it change already. We saw it change in the last 5 years. It's changed a lot. People are really looking for these tools. People really care and are putting a name to that need for supporting each other. In the last 10 years, the conversation around taking care of folks that are experiencing harassment, instead of making fun of them or ridiculing them or just pushing them aside like their hurt doesn't matter, that's changed. So culture is changing. We just have to make sure that the people we love, the communities we love, are changing alongside and are pushing that change in the right direction. So that is sort of what I always try to touch back into when I'm doing the work.
You're so right. It's power to the people, man. It's like that ripple effect. Well,
Yeah.
Gabriella, it was so lovely speaking with you again. Yeah, I just love the work that you're doing, and I'm happy to be connected.
The Shushbox podcast is brought to you by the team at Shushbox. We are a wellness platform created by survivors for survivors. For more information, head to www.shushbox.com and check us out on Instagram @_shushbox.